Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Destiny and welcome back to another episode in this tutorial series. So in this one, we're going to go ahead and start working with a way that we can actually increase the lifespan, or I would say the lifetime of an access token. So the problem is this: access tokens lifespan is usually very less. So a user's token will be valid for a very small amount of time, and after that it's going to go ahead and expire, and they would have to always log in, let's say every 5 minutes or so, to their accounts, which doesn't make any sense. So we're going to be finding a way to fix that problem in this video. Do make sure to drop a like, consider subscribing, as it really mean the world to me, and also check out the links in the description below. One of them should point you to something that you're really gonna like and would be helpful for you. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So just like I've explained, the access token's lifespan is usually very less. So the user's token will expire in a very short period of time, which will cause the token to expire and lock the user out. Okay, and the user will not be able to access the private pages and routes and other kind of stuff. So we need a way to fix this. So in order to solve this problem, we need a way such that we can intercept the request before it is sent to the server. And we need to intercept this request to see if the token is valid or not. And if it's not valid, we request for a new token via the refresh token. Hopefully you remember from the previous videos, I showed you guys that we can use the refresh token to get a new access token. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. So if the token is not valid, we can request for a new access token via the request, via the refresh token instead, and we will use that for the API request to the private route. So the private routes are something like a user must be logged in before they can access this view. Hopefully you understand. So that's why we need the access token to be able to access the private route, and that's why we want to increase the lifetime of the access token. So we use the same token to send requests to the private route and in general any other routes that we want to use. So we can solve this problem using a library called Axios. Okay, so Axios, they've got this interceptors and all this good stuff in them that we basically can use to intercept all the requests that we're going to be sending, and it will run interceptors first, then the actual request will be sent to the server. So we have to use Axios when you're calling like a private API, something like that have like a login required mixin or a login required decorator. Okay, so definitely you need to use the Axios library when calling this kind of APIs. Also, we have to update the state of our application if we get a new access token, so we can use a React custom hook. Okay, so I think let's just go ahead and start writing down some code for this. This shouldn't take much time, and after we are done with this, we're going to go ahead and start working with the main things that I know you guys have been waiting for in this tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to go ahead and start writing down the code in the source folder, we're going to create a new folder here that we're going to call utils, utils, just like that. And in the utils folder, we need to create a new one a new file that we're going to call use Axios. Okay, so use axios.js. Now in the use axios.js, that's where we're going to go ahead and start writing down the codes that we need to actually use to perform all this operation. Okay, so let's go ahead and start writing it down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and import Axios from Axios, just like this. And the next thing that we're going to be needing is to import the JWT, the code. So I'm going to say JWT underscore the code from JWT the code. Hopefully that we'll be using this throughout this tutorial. And I also need to import day.js. So remember I created this day.js thing, and yeah, we're gonna go ahead and also use I installed the day.js package when we were installing all the packages. So I'm gonna go ahead and also import that. So I'm gonna say import day.js from day.js. Okay, and finally I think let's also import the React use context hook. So I'm gonna say import use context, just like this, and that should be coming from React. Why do I keep typing FRP instead of from? So that should be coming from React. Okay, so and also you remember the use auth context thing that we had over here. I'm still gonna go ahead and import it. So I'm gonna say import auth context from, and we need to actually locate where that file is. So firstly we need to leave the utils folder. firstly we need to leave the use Axios and the utils folder. So we're going to go 2 steps backward, and we need to come over to the context folder. Okay, so we simply need to do context, this one over here, then the file inside the context folder, which is this. So now we have everything that we need in here. Let's go ahead and start writing. Firstly, let's get our base URL. So our base URL for the API is going to be this one over here. Let me go ahead and run my Python server again. So I'm going to say python manage.py run server. Okay, that's not running the server, so we simply need to cd into backend. Hopefully you can see it from down here. Then I'm going to go ahead and run the server again, and hopefully my Visual Studio Code is also visible enough for you to see everything that's going on. So my server is up and running. Now I'm going to come over to my browser and come over here, and if we come over to port 8000, okay, this is what we got. I think I have another Visual Studio Code instance opened up and something is running. So I'm going to go ahead and close this off. Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to come over to this port 8000, and I'm going to come over to /API then over here, this is our base URL. So we need to copy this URL over here, and we're going to paste it in here just like this. But make sure you're pasting it in without a slash. Okay, there is no specific reason for pasting without a slash. If you paste without a slash, that means if you want to call this, you must append a slash to the beginning of any URL that you want to call. Okay, so after that, let's go ahead and create a new function, and we're going to call this one use Axios. Okay, so I'm going to say use Axios, and we're going to say this is going to be a function. Hopefully you already know we've been working with something similar to this in the previous tutorials. And let's go ahead and instantiate some things. So over here, I'm just going to create auth tokens. All right, I'm going to show you guys everything that's going on. Auth tokens, and we also had set user, and we also had set auth tokens. So hopefully I'm getting the spellings right. And if we say use context and we pass in the auth context over here, then automatically all these are gonna get verified, or I don't know if that's right what to use, but automatically we're gonna have access to all this. So remember the set auth token, the auth token, all these are coming from in here. Hopefully you remembered we had those over here. As you can see, the auth token, the set auth token, and the set user. So here, hopefully that's it, and everything is looking great. Now let's go ahead and create a new one, this time around it's not going to be a function. I'm just going to create a const, and let's call this Axios. You could call it whatever you want, but I'm just going to call mine Axios instance, and this should be equal to Axios.create. So the Axios package that we have over here have this method called create. Okay, so we put in Axios.create, then we split this just like that. Then we'll pass in the base URL, and also we need to go ahead and pass in headers. So this is just similar, like, you know, sending just like sending, you know, a call to this URL over here. But instead of doing this, what we're trying to do is we're going to grab this URL and append some things to it. For example, in the header, what we simply want to add in is the authorization. Then we add in a bearer token. Okay, because I don't know if you've actually called an API before, or I don't know, maybe let's say PayPal API or some other API, then definitely in the header, you're supposed to pass in something like a token in the authorization. Hopefully, if you know what I'm talking about, then I'm sure you should have some idea of what's going on. But what we need to do is go ahead and pass in headers. Then over here, we need to pass in the authorization in there. Okay, so pass in authorization, and for this authorization, what it takes in is bearer. The first one is going to be bearer, then give a space. And right now, as you can see, we are using, this is JavaScript. We use backtick for JavaScript. So in the backtick, you can also call variables alongside strings. So that's what we want to do over here. Then in here, what we're simply going to do is we're going to grab auth tokens. Then we're going to say .access. So hopefully you understand what this is doing. We simply passed in the access token to the bearer or to the header authorization. But what if the access token does not exist? Then this code is not gonna run. It's gonna break our program. So we simply need to pass in a question mark over here. So what does this mean? This pretty much means if there is the auth tokens then that means there is an access. So we're gonna go ahead and grab the .access in there. Hopefully you understand. So this is not gonna break our code if there is no auth token in the local storage. Okay. So yeah, after we've done that, that's pretty much what we want to do for the first step. Then we just need to get down here I'm just going to get down here and let's start using the Axios instance that we've just created. So I'm going to say Axios instance. Then remember I was talking about some like interceptors. I don't know if you remembered. So right now we're going to go ahead and start using this interceptors. So I'm going to say Axios instance dot interceptors dot request dot use. Okay. So in here, what do we want to do? First thing, I'm going to go ahead and pass in an async, just like that. There's not going to be any question mark, just passing an async, and we're going to create a function. Okay, so in here, I'm going to, firstly, let me start with the user. So I'm going to say const user should be equal to JWT the code. And in the JWT the code, what do we want to decode? Let's decode auth tokens dot access. Okay, so the auth token dot access, just like this. And the next thing we want to check if it's expired. Don't worry, we're just creating all this. Then I'm gonna show you how we use all this later. So I'm gonna say const is expired. You can call this whatever you want. These are just variable names. Hopefully you already know that. Okay, so const is expired. Then what do we want to do? We just want to pass in the day.js thing .unix, and what we're gonna do is pass in the user.exp. So this user over here that we got from auth token, actually this is supposed to be auth token.access. Seems I forgot to add that. So this user over here that we passed it is gonna get the expiration date of this access token. Okay, so we simply say get the expiration date of the access token and check if the difference of the expiration date is less than 1. Okay, so over here I think we've missed something. Let's see what's going on. Okay, difference. Then in this difference, what we simply need to do is go ahead and call day.js. So we're gonna instantiate the day.js method. Then we're gonna say less than 1. So this might actually be somewhat confusing, I know, but what we are trying to do here is just to check if the access token hasn't expired. As simple as that. Okay, but what if it has expired? So I'm gonna come over here and say if it's expired. So if it's expired, just like this, then what do we want to do? We want to go ahead and return rec. So I'm going to open this up. This is going to be a function. So in here, we need to go ahead and return something. So if it's expired, we simply go ahead and return rec. But instead of just returning it in there, we can still do the same thing on the same line. So we can say return rec or request instead. That's the parameter that we passed in here. Okay. So yeah, we just did it on the same line because we're not going to have any other thing. If you do it on the same line, it's still the same thing. So after we've done this, I'm just going to get down and I'm going to say const response. So if you guys don't understand everything that's going on, don't worry, I'm going to break the code down after we're done. So just follow along with the code. So I'm going to say axios.post. And in here, we're not going to use a string to pass in the URL that we want to post to, but instead we're going to use a backtick. Remember, I told you that in a backtick, we can do things like passing this base URL parameter over here by passing in a $sign and opening up a bracket, just like that. We can pass that in. Then we could say something like /token/refresh. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to explain everything that's going on. Okay, this is not supposed to be token.refresh. It's supposed to /token/refresh. So if we come over here and we come over to the base URL, which is what we did over here, then come over to token/refresh, which is this one, right? Come over to /token/refresh. This is going to want us to put in a refresh token to get a new access token. So if for any reason we pass in a refresh token that already exists, it's going to go ahead and give us an access token, a new one. But as you can see, it says the token is invalid or expired, so it's not going to be able to give us a new one. We need to actually pass in a token that hasn't expired. So what do we want to do? We're supposed to go ahead and come over to API/token, just like this. Then we need to put in our email and password, hit the post, and we need to grab the refresh token, this one over here. So this is a refresh token that haven't expired yet. So if we grab this, come over to the refresh, and we'll paste this in here and hit post, what do you notice? It gives us a new access and a new refresh token. So that's what we're trying to do over here. So over here now, we're trying to get a new access and refresh token based on the recent refresh token that the user has passed in. Okay, so after we've done this, then over here, just after the backtick, you need to put in a slash, because as you can see, we have a slash over here. So you put in a slash, then you want to come out and put a comma and open this. So this is a function, hopefully you know. Then in here, we're going to go ahead and simply pass in refresh, just like this. And what do we want to say? We're going to say refresh, then auth tokens does refresh. Okay, so what is this doing? This is simply going to go ahead and grab the refresh token, and it's going to pass it in here, because you see, before we actually got a new access token, we had to pass in the refresh token in here. So that's what this code is doing. Okay, now let's just go through this code and see that, and see if we don't have any mistake. We have const response should be await axios.post. Then we call the base URL / API token. Make sure there is no slash over here. That's why we added a new slash over here. Token refresh. Then I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so auth tokens.refresh. Then after that, let's go ahead and work with the local storage. So for the local storage, hopefully you also know that all this that we're doing, we are still in the Axios instance. Okay, so for the local storage, just down here, I'm gonna say local storage.set item, and what do we want to set? This time around, what we're going to be getting is the auth token, or setting instead, not getting. So I'm going to say auth tokens, that's what we want to call it. Then I'm going to say JSON.stringify. So in here, what we need to do is go ahead and pass in this response.data. So I'm going to say response.data, just like that. And let's duplicate this one more time. I think, okay, for now, let's just comment this out. When we are ready to use it, we're going to come back and do that. Okay, so what we just need to do over here, just say auth tokens, and we need to pass in response.data. So response.data, just like that. And also we need to get down here and we need to say set user, and let's pass in JWT the code. And what we want to decode, we simply want to decode the response.data.access. Okay, just like this. And I think that's pretty much what we need to do. Okay, we still got one more thing to do, or about two more things to do. So I'm simply gonna say rec.headers.authorization. Okay, so rec.headers.authorization should be equal to, then remember how we've been doing this. So I'm going to say bearer, then in here, let's pass in, okay, yeah, this is supposed to be it. So I'm going to pass in response, just like this. So I'm going to say response.data.access. Okay, then yeah, we need to go ahead and return rec. So return rec, because this is a function. I told you guys, in a function you must return something, and also just like in a function you must return something, we also need to return something for this function also. I'm gonna say return Axios instance. Okay, so yeah, this Axios instance over here, that's what we're returning for this one. Then this rec that were passed in here, that's what we're returning for this one. Don't worry, I'm gonna brush you guys through what all this code are doing, and yeah, hopefully you guys are gonna have a clearer understanding. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. Now the last thing that we need to do is just go ahead and export this. So just down here, I'm simply gonna say export default. So export default, then what should we name this? Use Axios. Okay, so we are trying to export this use Axios thing that we created over here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me go ahead and explain everything that went on here. So we're trying to access the auth token, the set user, and the auth and the set auth tokens from the use context. So that's what we did over here. So we are accessing this from the use context. Remember how we did all this in the previous video, and all this are in this auth context. Hopefully you have an idea. So yeah, that's what we did. So we need to get them and change the state of the React application. Furthermore, we are creating an Axios instance having authentication headers like this one that we've been doing over here, that I've been showing you guys, that we pass in bearer, auth token, and all that. So we have having authorization headers and assuring that it is only used on private routes. Okay, that it's only used on private routes. Then simply what we did over here is simply go ahead and decoded all the access key that we got over here. So we simply decoded the access token, and I told you guys already that this token have something that's called expiry. This over here, this exp. So using this exp date, we tell when it will expire. Okay, and on the next line, this one's over here, we're just checking whether that token is valid or not. Simply, that's what we did. We check whether it's valid or not, and if it's expired, then we go ahead and get new token, or else we go ahead and retain the one that we had. That's what we pretty much did over here. So hopefully you guys have a quick understanding of everything that's going on, and so far I think that's pretty much it. So if you look at our API, then you're gonna know that we have about, I'm gonna come over to URLs py, this one over here. So as you can see, we have token, we have register, and we have this test route over here. So this test route is pretty much a route that is authenticated, that I'm going to show you guys. So for someone or a user to access this route, they definitely need an access token to access this route. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you guys how to use all this. So if a user is logged in, That's the only time, just like I've said, they should be able to see this route. Have it at the back of your mind. If they're not logged in, we redirect them to something like the login page. Okay, so we require something like a private route component that will make this possible, because so far we haven't got any private route component that's going to allow users access only the private route. So how do we go about the private route? Now, in this utils folder, we need to create a new file in here, and let's call it, I'm just going to call it let's say private routes. Okay, so I'm going to call it private routes. Okay, just like this, private route.js. And in this private routes, what we want to do is quite easy. I'm just going to go ahead and import, but before I start importing, I'm just going to say from React router DOM. Okay, so from React router DOM, because I'd want to get some suggestions, so everything that I'm actually importing will be the right one. So I'm going to import routes. I'm also going to import redirects. Okay, so hopefully I'm getting the spelling, redirects, just like this. Okay, so after we've imported those two things, the next thing that we need to import is the use context. Remember how we did that in here in the use Axios, this one over here? We could even just go ahead and grab it and paste it down here, because that's pretty much what we need. And another thing that we're going to be needing is also this one, so I'm also going to grab that and paste it. Oh, it seems I didn't grab it, so I'm going to grab this and paste it right here, as simple as that. So after we've done this, just follow along with the tutorial, with the code, and hopefully you guys are going to understand, but I'm going to try explaining what's going on also. So I'm simply going to say private route, just like this. This is a function. Remember how we passed in children in the previous ones that we were writing. So I'm going to say children, and I'm going to say dot rest. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to explain what's going on. This, just like I told you guys, it's a function, so we need to go ahead and pass in the arrows, just like this, and that, there you go. So after that, we need to come over here and say let's user. So we're pretty much trying to define a variable user. We say let this be equal to the use context. Then we're gonna grab the auth context. Okay, yeah, it's supposed to be use context, not user context. I was wondering what's going on. So in here, we're gonna pass in the auth context. So this user over here, as you already know, it's something that we have in here. Okay, so what we're trying to do now is grab a user from the auth context. So now what do we want to do with this user? We're pretty much going to go ahead and return. So just follow along with this. I'm going to open up angle brackets like that. I'm going to pass in routes like this, and in this route I want to pass in dot rest like that. And in here what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a curly bracket just like this. Also follow along, and I'm going to say if not user. So this is like if a user does not exist, then what do we want to do? Let's go ahead and redirect them to somewhere. So I'm just going to say I think this should be in another bracket, or I don't think we need this one over here. We can just make this to be a one redirect, just like this. Then where do we want to redirect them to? We're going to redirect them to the login. We can also use the link for this, but I think let's use redirect for now. So we're gonna have a route that we're gonna call login, so we'll direct them to there. Okay, so how about a user is actually authenticated? Then what do we want to do? So if a user is authenticated, there should be an else over here. We use that to indicate an else. Then we're gonna pass in children. So let me explain what's going on. So what all this code does is pretty much check whether a user is present or not, as simple as that. So if the user is present, they need to pass all the props to the child component, and that route will be rendered. Otherwise it will return us to the login page. Okay, so as you can see over here, if there is not a user, then we return to the login, else we pass in the children. So it's going to pass all the children props to the components, then it's going to display the route, okay, and everything that's supposed to be shown in that route. As simple as that. So I could say the hard part is over. Now we need to go ahead and start using all these things that we've created in this application. We're going to make use of, all the use adjusting, the private route, auth context, and all that. We're going to be making use of them, and we're going to be creating routes, pages, and components. And from now on, I think we're going to go ahead and start working with the interesting part of the course. But I think let's just round it up for now here, so it won't get much long. We've actually written this today, and also this. So yeah, let's just push it over to the next tutorial. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the tutorial and learned something new. In the next one, we're going to go ahead and start working with creating the routes, and that's really going to be amazing. Do make sure to drop a like on the video, consider subscribing, as it really means the world to me. And until the next video, mad love, peace out.